Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over the water once again to Copenhagen, and we're going to visit once again one of the most famous craft breweries today. So we're going to go to Mikkeller, and today we're having a go at their Santa's Little Helper 2015 edition. This is a bit different from the other two I did for you, the Drinking in the Snow and the Xmas Wish. This is meant to be a really nice beer. Every year they release a different edition of this, and the one last year was 10.4%, but this one comes in at 9.1%, and they're all Belgian strong ales, so it should be a really nice beer. And before I did this kind of little series of them, the last Christmas beer I did from Mikkeller was the Hoppy Lovin' Christmas, which was a really nice IPA if I remember rightly. So it's interesting to actually try one of the more strong beers from Mikkeller. I've not had one of these big beasts in quite a while, so very much looking forward to this beer. But anyway, as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you do want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual websites are in the video description below. The brewery website, the link to my other Mikkeller reviews, and also all the usual social media, Facebook, Twitter and Untappd, all for the channel, and feel free to add me on any of those and contact me through whatever means you like. Always interesting to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and to my Danish viewers, please do recommend some of the more unknown or lesser known Danish breweries for me to have a look at. Always interesting to try new beer from new places. But anyway, to tell you about Mikkeller, as many of you will know, this is the famous Danish gypsy brewery, and it was founded by Christian Keller and Mikkel Bjergso, although now it's exclusively run by Mikkel Bjergso, who actually used to be a physics and maths teacher. And again, this brewery is very influenced by the craft beer movement, and basically it started out as the home brewing experimentation of Christian and Mikkel, and it grew from there. The people in their home brewing and beer tasting group really enjoyed their beers, so they decided to go all out and actually start their own company. So they don't have their own brewery as such, but rather they brew at a variety of host breweries, including in the US, Norway, Scotland and Belgium. Most of their beer is actually brewed at the De Proef Brouwerij in Locriste, which is quite near Ghent in Belgium, and their home base as such is the Mikkeller bar in Copenhagen. They've got two of them there. They've also got a collaboration one with Toul, which is called Mikkeller and Friends. That one's meant to be really nice. I've only been to the original Mikkeller bar, but the founders of Toul are actually students of former students of Mikkel's who were also studying physics and maths. But again, these guys are a hugely experimental brewery, and to date they've brewed probably well over 800 or so different beers. A lot of good stuff coming out from Mikkeller. And if you do find yourself in Copenhagen, I would highly recommend that you go and try either War Pigs, the original Mikkeller bar, or Mikkeller and Friends. A lot of people have told me that Mikkeller and Friends is the best one, so maybe that's a good place for you to start. But as I say, go and check out the brewery website and you'll get an idea of all the different beers they do. Rate Beer, if you go and check all the lists of beers they've done on there, it's ridiculous. So many good beers coming out from Mikkeller. Very rarely will you get a bad beer from these guys. But anyway, let's actually get on to the tasting of this beer itself. So, as I told you at the start of the video, this one is a 9.1% Belgian strong ale, brewed exclusively for Christmas. There's a new edition of it comes out every year. This one comes in at 9.1%. The one last year I think was 10.5%, and yeah, it should be really nice. 2014's edition was rated at 96. So yeah, it should be really quite an interesting beer for us to have a look at. I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one. You can see Santa's feet and the usual kind of Mikkeller guy there with he's got a broken bottle actually, I think he's holding. I'm not sure why he's holding that. Maybe he's had a bad night at the pub or somebody's pissed him off or something. But yeah, you can see quite a nice looking beer this. It tells you in the back, brewed at Locriste in Belgium, De Proef Brouwerij. Yeah, it doesn't say what hops and things are in it, just says sugar hops. It's got orange peel added to it, coriander seeds, and also some yeast as well, so it should be quite an interesting one for us to have a look at. Plain bottle cap on this one, as you can see, but yeah, it should be really interesting. So without further ado, we'll get stuck into this guy. So as you can see, nice smoky opening on this guy. I don't think you really caught much of that on the camera, but we'll get it out and see how we get on. So actually, I can't even remember the last Mikkeller beer I reviewed before this kind of these three Christmas beers was actually the Drinking in the Snow, which is the low alcohol beer. You don't get so many of the different Mikkeller beers here in Sweden. I'll need to take a trip to Copenhagen and try and get a few different bottles, because it's been a while since I've done something a bit more exotic from these guys. But as you can see, this beer's poured a really nice dark kind of rosewood ebony colour actually. It's almost the same colour as Coca-Cola if I bring the light over to it, it's actually got a nice red tint to it, and I can see there's a good bit of sediment inside the glass there, just little particles floating around. There's a 2-finger frothy kind of beige coloured head, and if I hold it over the light, I'm not sure how well you can see it, but there is quite a big red tinge there, a nice dark ruby colour. There's actually quite a lot of light coming through that. I'm not sure, if I put my fingers behind it this way, I can actually see a level of transparency there, but I don't think you're going to be able to pick that up on the camera. It looks very, very dark, but there's some big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass and quite a few little ones just going up towards the bottom of that head there, but it looks very nice. The head's a little bit bumpy, but mainly quite foamy. So we'll have a smell of this guy before we get on to the tasting. As I always say, you should smell your beers, particularly when they're from somebody Mikkeller, before you actually drink them. So this is quite interesting. Not the most pungent aroma I've come across from Mikkeller, I have to admit. But there's quite a lot going on in this beer, a lot of subtle things going on. There's a nice big malty aroma in there. You've got a nice sweet chocolate coming out. Good bit of Belgian bread and yeast, as you would expect. It's more of a kind of brownie bread character, sort of cereally. You can pick up that spicy character, probably from the coriander. But yeah, a big bready malt base on this one, that typical Belgian yeast. But as I say, more of a kind of big brown doughy bread character coming out of this one. A little bit of the coriander spice, and you can get a good bit of chocolate sweetness in there as well. And there's a definite hint. There's a definite hint of a kind of nice dark toasted caramel, a bit of treacle or molasses. You can pick up just a little bit of an orangey citrus in this beer as well, which is quite interesting. Yeah, the chocolate in this one's actually what's sticking out to me most. A nice sweet chocolatey aroma coming out of this one. Not really picking up much in the way of fruit. There is a little bit of a red candied fruit, some orangey citrus in there as well from the orange peel, I would guess. But there's a nice slightly spicy character in there. The coriander is quite subtle, but if you pay close attention you can pick it up. I think it's mainly a chocolatey and kind of brown bready character that's coming out of this one. Everything else in there is actually quite subtle in my mind. Yeah. Yeah, really quite a subtle aroma on this one. Everything's blending together really quite well. So we'll have a try of it now. Maybe give it a wee smell a bit later in the video as well when the head calms down a wee bit. But yeah, without further ado then, this is the Santa's Little Helper 2015 edition from Mikkeller, based in Copenhagen in Denmark, but brewed at Christehefte in Belgium. Skål! Now that's really nice actually. As I always say though, just let your palate adjust to the beer properly before you start thinking too much about the flavours. Yeah, the first thing you'll notice about this beer is that it is very smooth, and the flavours are very, very well blended together, I'll have to admit. But yeah, there's a huge bready malt base in there. Really quite nice tasting beer this. There's a whole host of stuff going on there. The middle of your palate immediately is just blanketed by this big brown bread character, and that goes right across the middle of your tongue there. There's a bit of a kind of thicker, almost doughy or dusty yeasty character just comes in right on top of that. And you can pick out the spices in this as well. It almost tastes as if there's just a little bit of a kind of nutmeg in this, but you can get the coriander as well. Nothing like cinnamon, definitely a sort of coriander, smooth coriander flavour coming out of this one, and that blends in the middle of the palate there really quite well. That actually, it becomes a bit more prominent as you move into the aftertaste, the coriander flavour, I think. I want to say as well that there's maybe a little bit of a woody or nutty flavour coming out of this one. There's a lot of stuff going on in this beer. You can, as you take a few more sips of it, you can get a little bit more of the alcohol warmth out of this beer, which is quite nice. You want your winter beers to be nice and big and warm. This is probably the kind of beer that's designed that they'll say, oh, drink it in front of a roaring fire. yeah, it is really quite nice actually. Whole host of stuff going on there in that malt base. The caramel actually is quite subtle in this one. It's quite a dark kind of treacly molasses, and the chocolate I think drowns quite a bit of it out, but the spiciness even drowns a bit more of the chocolate out. It's just the middle of the palate in this one is a very big blend of different flavours. There's nothing really punching its way out, I think. The spicy character is lingering there, but even the spicy character is a blend between a sort of nutmeggy, maybe even slightly cinnamony flavour, but the coriander becomes a bit more prominent in the aftertaste, I would say. At the back corners of the palate too, I would say the hoppy part of this beer is predominantly earthy. At the back corners of the palate you can get, it's a bit stronger, but as you move further forward around the tongue it becomes really quite smooth actually. The earthy characters in this beer are very nice and very smooth, I would say. Yeah. It's just really nice. If you just pay attention to the very front of your tongue, go a little bit behind that, then you've got a nice oily bubble in there, and that's where your fruity esters always come out in the beer. So I want to say it's mainly a candied fruit flavour coming out in this one, mainly a bit of figs, but again, for me it's coming across as a very subtle note. Maybe with maybe different people will pick that up at a different intensity or something, but for me the fruity aspects of this beer are quite subtle, I would say. The main aspect of this beer has to be that big kind of spicy bready malt base and all the nutty flavours and chocolate and everything that's in there. This is just a big infusion of different flavours. It's really nice and it's very smooth and quite nicely drinkable. That's the thing that's dangerous about it when it's 9%. Yeah. You pay a bit more attention to that, you can get a little bit of the slightly sharper esters, maybe the kind of raisins and plums I would say, but for me the fruity characteristics, they linger there a little bit into the aftertaste, but the most prominent component of this beer I think is that big bready and slightly kind of spicy character that comes out of it. Really quite an interesting beer this, as I say, very infused, a lot of stuff going on in it. But in terms of the mouthfeel of this one, I would say it's quite full bodied. The carbonation is really quite smooth, quite an oily mouthfeel to it as well, but it's got a huge malty character as you would expect. A lot of things just kind of blending together really. It's quite sweet, but at the same time the spicy character is really quite prominent, and you do have just a little bit of juiciness from the fruits, and maybe towards the back corners of the tongue there's a little bit of dryness from the earthy hops, but the hoppy character of the beer for me is really quite smooth. But yeah, I mean, it's another really good beer from Mikkeller. I would recommend that you try it, and it's got a nice little Christmas edge to it since it's got all these kind of spices and things. They're saying there's orange peel in there. Personally, I couldn't really get that from the flavour of this beer. What else were they saying? Orange peel, coriander seeds, and yeast. And it says it's got dark cassonade sugar, which I think is just a very dark brown sugar in there. So you can pick that up a little bit, but it's not overwhelmingly sweet like some caramel flavours in beers can be. This one's it is more of a bread, if you're talking about it in terms of like a Belgian Dubbel or something like that, which it could resemble. The Belgian Dubbel has a lot more of a sweet caramel to it, slightly toasted normally. This is more of a kind of bready, malty Dubbel beer, if it's anything like that, but they say it's a Belgian strong ale, so maybe a slightly different style, but you can debate about that all day. The main point is that this is a really quite nice beer, and I would recommend that you try it. So yeah, as always, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. I would recommend you have a go of it if you like your Belgian style Dubbels and Belgian strong ales, or even if you just like Mikkeller. You know, it's definitely a beer that you should have a go of. Very good for a nice kind of dark winter night, I guess. The whole thing about a beer in front of a roaring fire, this one fits into that category quite perfectly. So as always, please let me know in the comment section below your own thoughts on this beer. Always interesting to hear from you guys that are watching the videos. There will be more from Mikkeller probably after the turn of the year. I've got a Swedish series coming up, a German series, and probably I'll film a lot of beers when I go home for Christmas as well, so do check those out. Comment in the section below and let me know your own thoughts on this beer. There will be many more reviews to come. Follow me on social media, but I thank you once again for your support. Do check out this beer, and I will catch you soon with more reviews. Slàinte just now.